We are live. We are back. Episode 84, Lyrical Ones. Affluent, as you know, as before we even got on, how are you doing? What's going on?
Like 7-Eleven, open all the time. Like Randy Moss after the 20-yard line, always open. Number 80, episode 84. I'm feeling great, Senio. I'm happy to be here. I'm walking in gratitude. I am, I guess I could say I'm perplexed, but really I'm just more excited about the commentary of a very popular manga and anime that is coming to a conclusion um, this spring or this winter 22 anime season. And before we get into it, it's January 19th, 11922. How are you?
Um, I'm challenged. I'm challenged, but I'm appreciative of the challenge. I'm appreciative of the what I have access to be so thankful that as much as I am challenged, that I'm able to persevere and overcome. Um, it is tax season, and as an LLC owner who has taken on many new relationships and many new endeavors, there's a lot I'm learning. There's a process within a process, and I'm creating this hopefully shareable document of what to do in these circumstances when you are starting off in a business, because man, it's so much to pay attention to, so much to keep track of, so much to like understand the nuances and what works and what doesn't work. And it's like from, you know, the city level to the county level to the state level to the federal level, all these different entities want to know what you got going on, and they want a piece of what you got going on if you
That's the
got
truth.
something going on, right? So I'm really trying to configure all those things, because as I've sought out and have been seeking support and direction, I realize that either they're behind paywalls or it's hard to vet where you want to go to get what you need. And I have some very specific questions, so I'm going to get some very specific answers. So, I am challenged by the current moment, but appreciative of it, because I know I will overcome them. So yeah, that's how I'm doing.
I feel that. Yeah, the challenges ain't easy, man. And um, I'm thinking about this ALT season 4. For y'all that don't know, it's Attack on Titan,
And
and
for the readers, they already know, and for the watchers, they're about to find out.
about to find out. But for me, I have found resonance with the story because I have seen the correlation between the experiences of Black people in relationship to the country they came from and the country that their relatives ended up in. And it's wild because I really see African Americans as honorary Marlians who are of Eldian descent with superpowers, dormant but common knowledge, and the folks on Paradise Island as Eldians who some of them don't even know all their history. And it's wild because like to some degree they can't trace so far back as as we think they can, or we would prefer them to be able to. Um, and it's really wild to be in a space of seeing the opportunity to work together slip through our fingers so often. The opportunity to learn from each other and build together and encourage and lift one another up. See that opportunity slip through our hands so often. And I think often we don't recognize, how insidious the system is, how manipulated we are, and that the system is killing us and starving us and restricting and caging us and calling it pomp and circumstance for real. Um, yeah, so it's just wild because I see that we are always looking for the charismatic Aaron type to be the attack titan that that leads us forward. We're always looking for the hero to pop up on social media, on the news, through the grapevine. We're looking for the charismatic person to come through on a podcast, on on a on a drink champs, on on an album, on an NFT project, on a sports team, looking for the outspoken, charismatic role model leader type to say, this is not working. And here's the Mamba mentality that we need to have to move forward. These are the things that we need to focus on. We need to focus on the children and show them how they can be represented in children's books. And we need to focus on the next generation, and we focus on the next generation of women athletes. And folks who just do their job while hoping somebody comes and disrupts things so much that it makes sense to follow the disruptor, that it makes sense to move in league with someone who's disrupting the system. But most of the time, everybody understands that the system ain't great, system ain't perfect, and the system is chopping off chunks of you at the end of the off the end of your life just from the stress, just from the stress of seeing your brothers and sisters and non-binary folks with their superpowers and thinking they coming to destroy your wall and your homes and and con- and consume you and take from you and take of you. And it's wild because I think I remember I know growing up that there were neighborhoods that I could not go into basically because there were titans there, right? That there were people with the same blood as me who had been affected by the system, and they were given a substance to put them out of their mind. And I could walk through ghettos around America. I could walk through the Tenderloin of San Francisco. I could walk through, certain encampments, and I could find the substances that was turning folks into mindless murderers, to the point where they wouldn't recognize me if I had spent 10 years of life with them. They could not help themselves but to destroy me. And that's the sad thing, and this the sad part of the story is that I see it so vividly within my life and my experience. Um, Felt fortunate that I was able to um, visit West Africa at the end of 2019, and the folks understand that when tourists show up, tourists got money. But what I appreciated was the folks who took it upon themselves and took the initiative to be kind, even when I didn't have nothing for them, even if they wasn't selling nothing, to set an atmosphere. And like, I know I'm a tourist. Like, I know that the experience I have is not the experience that the everyday person has. Same way I know in my city, there's a whole bunch of people here who are tourists coming here to spend money, and the San Francisco that they experience is not the one that I live with and experience every day. And I have to navigate and trust my instincts and the warning signs all the time when I see patrol cars around, when I see CHP around. I I don't just take evasive maneuvers. I have to have evasive defensive thinking. I have to turn my alertness all the way up, and it is intense. And I don't necessarily have to do that when I'm a tourist. But also, I recognize that there was a community of people, at least a percentage of people, that chose to be kind to me while I was visiting. And it made me feel welcome. It made me feel like I had traveled 7,000 miles to feel at home for the first time. And and I can imagine it doesn't feel like that when people travel from Africa to the United States and find African Americans around and they don't feel at home. I can imagine leaving Paradise Island and going to Marley and being among people who are like you and share the same lineage and not feeling at home. And then I can imagine being a double agent. I can imagine being I can imagine being uh, a, a Agent Braun and feeling at home after growing up hearing that these people ain't great, that they are evil in some way, and then living among them and feeling at home and feeling like, oh man, these are my people. These people took care of me, had my back, and then being confused and wondering, have I been making the right choice? Who is my loyalty to? And how do I stop the fatigue that I'm feeling from basically upkeeping the status quo while I see people around me being harmed. It's it's a wild life. I'll tell you that.
Extremely, extremely wild. It provokes a thought that I've had many times over, where you're born with no choice, but at some point you have a choice, and it's very easy to forget that because you know you've gone so long not having to make choices. Choices are made for you. Your name, the words you use, when you're gonna eat. Now, I'm not saying that's the same for everybody, right? It's not the same for everybody. For some people, the system that they came into, the world they came into, some choices were not made for them. They had to figure
Right.
it out. But a lot of choices beginning, right, are made for you. They're given to you. And then you have to figure out that you now have to make choices. A lot of times people don't even identify or understand that they just operate and continue down this path, this cycle. When you say, you went to West Africa, it highlights these memories I've had, these experiences. One comes to mind of an ex girlfriend I had. She was fortunate enough to go on a trip through the South to pretty much meet people who were, in the civil rights movement, right?
Mm.
And they're all elderly at this point. And I'm asking, like, what is the cultural dynamics? What is the ethnicity and race of the youth? And she very plainly tells me that, like, it's predominantly white kids. And I'm like, man, I can only imagine the impact this would have on other young black kids. Because I know listening to it, it was such a enlightening thing to hear that this was happening, that this was real. But it was disheartening to know that I couldn't think of any friends that had went on this trip. I couldn't think of any friends who,
Mm.
in my eyes, could have benefited from knowing their history, in such a firsthand account. Right? It provokes these memories of a police officer from SFPD, Officer JJ, who has a program where he takes young black youth to Africa. Right? Takes them to a metropolitan city so they can see that Africa is not this depiction of a rural, very, dystopian, lacking of resources place. He takes them somewhere where there's, for the sake of a great term, a very affluent African community, right? Where they're doing well. And to have kids coming from the inner city who may not have the access to the best resources, the best living conditions, the best surroundings, to then go into a country where every person that they see, right, where majority of the faces look like their family, and then to see that they are business owners, right, that they
Mm.
are doctors, they're lawyers, they're holding all these different positions in society, and it's not a place of poverty, it's not a place of dirt roads, right? And the level of confidence these kids come back with, right? How it shapes them, how it changes them to see this, to know that this exists, right? And you bring up a good point because many times over, you can say the X-Men, you can say Planet of the Apes, you can say so many different stories that encapsulate the black experience in America
Right.
and the dynamics of how we start to define as people, right? Beyond the scope of color and skin and beyond the scope of what you see, right? Just in our sense of nationality, how we identify what the enemy is, how we identify what the opposition looks like, right? How we start to depict who is our target of anger, frustration, hate, rage, and how this crazy level of inequity where there's opportunities, there's services, there's places to go, but the connections aren't made, right? You got into a position where you could go and you went, right? Some people are able to get to that point and make it happen and go and see, right? Some people never will. They won't have the opportunity. They may not care, right?
Right.
But then it goes back to that idea of, choices, right? If you're raised in an environment where the value is never introduced to you, it's never brought into your circle, the chances and likelihood that you're going to even understand the value of your history or the foundation or the building blocks of your identity are less likely to transpire, less likely to take hold, right? It's easy when, you look to your neighbors who they probably just, they got it like that. And you think to yourself, well, they my neighbors. So that means I'm closer to them than I am to person all the way on the other side of the globe. And I think it's important that we create space for that we have and we share and we make sure that people know that they have access to it, because yeah, those people who were in the civil rights movement, they're passing away. Those stories are
Mm.
going to go with them, right? It's different
Yeah.
when you're able to sit down and catch the nuance from the person in front of you versus reading in a book or watching a video, right? The level of intimacy is different, right? I can choose to disengage because as much as you may have presence on the screen, your presence is not in the room. It's a big difference. And I can't help but think about the point that you made around when you're built to believe, oh, I don't identify with that. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't know who
Mm.
they are, right? But when you look at the world around you and you realize how many countries are investing and putting so much into the continent, not just the countries, the continent of Africa for its natural resources, right? For the many different things that it provides. It's no different than, when South Africa was experiencing apartheid, right? When there was a huge difference in class, right? You had these people who came in and took over, and it took many years, right? It wasn't until about the 80s that things even began to look like there was a chance, right? Desmond Tutu just recently passed away, right?
Yep.
It highlights how right now in society, our leadership who are pushing for change in a very complete and total way, not in this, oh, let's leverage what's in front of us so we can continue this game of inches, instead of saying, no, we gonna fight for what makes sense, what's right, right? And it's not to minimize what other people go through, right? You could look at the what is it called, the Uyghur people in China, right? The
Hmm.
genocide, the massive amounts of civil rights that are being infringed, imposed, being stripped of from these people who exist, right? And the dynamic of people who just don't even know, right? Like
That
people
part.
getting caught in the web of what's happened, not realizing it's still happening, that there's still slavery, right? It don't look like what they've put in a textbook, right? But there's still this concept of people being caught in a system where they're indentured servants, right? They're put into positions where they don't have freedom, where they are literally just at service to a system to make sure that the system works, not for themselves, right? Not for their gain, right? Just for the system, whatever the system is. Whether the
Yeah.
system be a government, uh, it be a class, whether it be a metropolitan area, whether it be a tourist resort, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be the roadways, whether it be sanitation. People in the world right now are slaves, right? They are being convinced that this is to serve some other purpose that is to devalue themselves, but to value something else in return, right? I'm going to use you as a disposable vessel to gain what it is that I'm seeking. And when I think of that show, right, it's funny, it's like when you think of shows to introduce people into the world of like anime,
Hmm.
right? That's one of the ones I reference because it has such an intricate depiction of the politics we experience, of the world we live in, of the socio-economic, the class, the historical, the cultural, like all these different things that play a role in the fact that yeah, there's no separation. As much as people try and escape and become disassociative from the reality that we live in, that we share, this existence, this fabric, we all exist within it, but people want to feel something different. People want to stay away from certain aspects of it. People don't want to engage because it makes them uncomfortable, right? It's a world at war with itself, and depending on where you're looking, right, you miss the brutality, you miss the sense of humanity that's needed
Yeah.
because it's easy to get wrapped up in something else. It's so easy to. It's so, whatever word you want to use as a form of expression of emotion, of an exclamation mark and a question mark, of how you can like disengage, how you can remove yourself even though you in it, right? There's so much information, so much to take in, and I'm always of the belief that people will be the difference. People, as numbers grow, as numbers show, right? That there's a few people who have a ton of wealth who keep trying to tell us what we need to do with ourselves, how we need to view our health, how we need to view our life, and the philosophy of what happiness should be, right? And they want to craft that so they can maintain the position that they sit in to continue to tell us. But I do believe that once enough people are aware and they care enough to want to do something, it will change, right? I'm at a point, as I've said many times, where yeah, like I just started off like talking about being challenged to having an LLC because I understand that as uncomfortable as it is, that this world grants access to those that take that venture into being their own business, into doing their own
Mm.
thing, right? That's where unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you view it, that's where we at, right? We will want to say the world gonna take care of us. The world ain't gonna take care of you. We can barely take care of the world. It's not to say that we can't, but in the moment, as it is happening, as it exists, we're not doing the best job, right? People are being put in harm's way, being put in circumstances where, it's like, yeah, who is the enemy? Because it's all people, right? I could keep saying, oh, they wrong. They wrong for that. They wrong for this. They shouldn't do that. Oh, I can't stand them. But reality is they're people, right?
Yeah.
Me sitting where I'm at makes the difference on how I view them. But if I challenge myself, I realize how I view them isn't how I feel. It's more so what's been dictated and presented to me over time and how I've grown to accept that. I've grown to think that what is being given to me is the way when reality is not the way, right? It's easy to be convinced when someone is telling you this is from a place of compassion or from love that yes, you need to hate these people. You need to not like them. You need to destroy them. They need to go. They're wrong.
Right.
When in reality, I need to really reflect on, do I have a grasp of understanding of myself? Do I have any baseline on what love looks like to me as a person within myself to then start to define harm on any level to other people? Because I think there's a lot to explore. There's a lot like that show in particular, Attack on Titan, for those that don't know or are unaware of what we're referencing as we have this very intricate conversation of where we are in life, the impact of culture and race and nationality that exists, that as much as you want to ignore for those people and for those that are maybe consumed by it, right? Because it goes both ways. Some people just so far away, and some people they're like almost paralyzed from the thinking, from the processing, from the pretty much, how do I put it, like digestion of the situation,
Mm.
right? They trying to process all this information and what's going on, and then not get lost and wrapped up where it becomes the paralysis of analysis. It becomes a paralyzing fear of, oh my goodness, this is what's out waiting for me outside, right? And that's like, I can't help but want to change things for the better. I can't help but want to provide opportunities and give people access. And I know that that does leave me vulnerable to a certain degree. And,
Mm.
people prey on people who want to be at service, who want to do for others, right? Where there's an opportunity to exploit. If you've been taught to exploit, you're going to exploit, right? We see it with artists, we see it with athletes, we see it with so many ways of these systems that are supposed to be like, oh, this is a great opportunity for you. This is great. I'm telling you it's great because I have to convince myself that it's great and then convince you so you could keep perpetuating the same thing, right? Like it's not it's not something that just it will leave because it's like, oh yeah, it's just kept going and evolved into something better. Nah, it don't work like that. We too thoughtful. We're too incredible. We're too amazing. But when we don't engage in that, we don't harness and develop that, we lose sight of who we are. We lose sight of what we can do. We lose sight of our abilities and we let others dictate to us instead of us being able to take ownership and make it happen. And I know there's people who don't care, don't want to do nothing. And it's not about them, right? Because they going to go wherever the flow is. That's what they doing. They just a reflection of the purveying energy. Whatever the oppressive structure is, right? That's what they going to do. Now, does it mean that what I'm saying as an alternative, right? Oh, like getting connected with your roots and understanding your history and seeing what it means to really become in tune with how did you get here, right?
Mm.
What's the lineage really look like? What's the cultural breakdown? Does that mean that has to be oppressive? No, but it should be a lot more accessible because what
Yeah.
we have access to right now is if I'm not in school, right, as a child, I have all these different devices and applications to preoccupy my time and my interests and consume myself with. Whereas the accessibility, right, the presentation, the avenues in school and out are not as prevalent, right? They're not as renowned or known. And that's by choice. People
Yeah.
choose to make what they make. If people choose to make something that presents new information or a historical account of what is happened already that is engaging and entertaining and enlightening and enriching, well, what can what's people go and watch Spider-Man, whether it's trash or not. We just so happen to be in a space and time where it ain't trash, right? But that same can be said, right? When we looking at a whole island dealing with a tragedy and a travesty of epic proportions on, it's natural, it's nature, but our response, how we receive this event and how we choose to respond to it, these are the things that innovate and change the course of history or continue to perpetuate down the path of what we've already done, what has already happened. And so, yeah, I feel like when you brought that up, man, it really highlighted a lot of the intricacies of not only what the show represents, but how, yeah, it connects to us as people, how it connects to the fact that, like, I'm a big believer you just got to do it, right? Whether it's what you eating or who you're with, you have a choice to make. It may seem scary. Trust me. It's scary when you got to pay money to somebody, not knowing if you're going to have to pay them more because you messed up on one document, right? It's scary. It could be scary to be like, oh, I got to pay all this money. And then, oh, I messed up. Now I got to pay more. I don't want to. Well, it's not my fault, right? It's not that I don't want to pay. It's that I don't want to mess up. Same thing, right? I want to eat healthy, but maybe it's not as accessible or, it's difficult for me to engage in that way, right? Everything can be true, but who you with, where you at, what are you surrounded by, what's gonna make the difference, right? What's
Yeah.
gonna be the thing that will help perpetuate you to say, I'm gonna make a change, I'm gonna do something different, right? Whether it's the internal dialogue you have with yourself to say, I'm gonna do this for me, or putting yourself around people who can help reinforce that energy to then be like, we need to make that change. Cause it could go either way. right? It's not even to say that it's two ways. It's many different ways. Sometimes you got to seek it out. Sometimes you got to get out your comfort zone and go find them. Sometimes you got to ask around you, right? So many times we don't ask anybody around us because we think they don't know. In reality, they might have that one thing that we're looking for, right? Sometimes you got to put on a facade to see, well, is this going to give me access? Because, yeah, we live in a world where being inauthentic is just as much a part of being authentic. It's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't that way, but it is that way. It is that way. You may have to develop a skill that does not resonate with you. You may have to develop a language or a way of talking or something where, yeah, in your soul, in your heart of hearts, what you want to do is cuss them out. What you want to do is yell. But if who's in front of you can grant you access and they don't value that method, you may have to figure something else out. I like jujitsu. I don't like boxing. But I do see the benefit in boxing if I'm ever in a fight. Hmm. It's not to denounce and dismiss. Some ways it's opening up and being available, being vulnerable, being accessible. It's tough because it's easy to say, no, I can't do it. That ain't me. Or is it that you choose not to because someone might have implanted some self limiting beliefs? It could be anything. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's one or the other. I'm just saying,
Right.
have you explored? Have you even critiqued or challenged it? Sometimes we just become so fixed on what we think that's the truth. We become so fixated on what we think. We believe that is the core pillar of who we are, when in reality, someone might have passed that down to you and it is corrupting your being and your growth. If you're a tree and someone sticks a metal rod through the roots, that might be interrupting your process of growth. But you think because it's been there before you, that is yours. It's for
Right.
you. No, it's not. That's the thing. It's like when I think of a certain character in particular where trauma's been passed to them and then it becomes the core of their life, right? You inherited something from someone else, right? You look at how many characters are just taking on the trauma, taking
Yeah.
on the problems of someone that came before them, and then it becomes who they are. It consumes them, right? Now, the choices that are made, right, referring to this show in particular without mentioning any one person, so it's not to spoil it. You can find out for yourself, and if you know what's up, you know what's up. So it's much appreciated. But to think about it, you have to really challenge yourself to know, am I taking this on because this is me, or am I taking this on because it was given to me, right? Do I really resonate with this? Because if I continue down this path, I may commit myself to actions where the consequences are too gigantic, too huge, too titanic to walk away from. Or do I say in my journey, as I challenge myself to think about it, you know what, this ain't for me, and I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna drop this and I'm gonna pick something else up, right? Make my peace with what's happened so far and realize this is not me. Because I think it's worth the exploration. It's worth the internal dialogue or the external conversation to have, to really think about it critically. Because it is easy to get caught up in the rapture of someone else's mess and not even realize it's not yours. To not even see that this might have just been given to me. UFOs are real. Aliens are all around us. Dogon tribe, Sirius star system. Look it up.
Yeah. And as we move forward, people figuring out the best path for themselves and their family and their community is gonna take like some unlearning, and like that's not an overnight thing. whether they figure out like how to navigate from watching an anime, or they look at the world that they live in and and spot what's happening to to the youth in the education system, or they spot it, from paying their taxes or the change in taxes, or whatever they need, whatever indicators they need to see that they have to be intentional about their life and they can't just let people choose and dictate for them. Uh, folks, I think we all got a journey there.
Definitely, definitely a journey. Hero's journey. I mean, we don't gotta romanticize it, but a journey that is valuable no less. A journey that is worth experiencing and having. A journey that is like whether or not you decide to describe what the ingredients and the makeup of bologna are and people are disgusted by it, or saying I'm just gonna eat some vegetables. It's up to you. You have a choice. You can decide. It's one of those things right now where it's tough choices being made, but I hope people realize like the realest thing, right? To use the real world as a reference point for what I'm gonna say. There's people in political positions of power and they use that power like a celebrity, right? They'll use social media to drive their message, their narrative, their beliefs, and they'll create a crowd around that to try and get support for whatever the initiative is, right? Same is to be said about celebrities in general, right? They got a new book, they got a movie, they got a new thing, a new routine they're doing, they got something new to present. So what do? They become active, they start to get people around to get behind what's coming. They're selling you something or they're trying to get you to do something. Your time is valuable, right? Because if you're working for someone, your time has been defined by an hourly rate or a yearly rate wage. And, you know, if it's the politician, it's your time to invest in it, right? So then
Mm.
your time now is being given as labor to this initiative. Sign a petition, come and speak out, come and share your voice, right? If it's the entertainer, right? It's I want your money. I want you to pay. I want you to either way, right? Your money, you earn that, right? You had to do something for it. Unless you're one of the few who just had to be born, right? You was in a situation. You still got to make the transaction happen. There's some effort there. Not gonna. I'm not gonna deny you. I didn't make you. You didn't make you either. So why am I gonna sit up here and be like, you can't be included in this conversation? You included in this too. That's me being inclusive. So if we're gonna think about it in this way, right?
Mm.
This journey, who are you? Who do you give your time to? How do you give your time? Matter of fact, affluent, how on this journey, right? Where's the time for you being spent, right? Where do you give it to? Because sometimes it's not about the entertainer or the politics. Sometimes it is, but how much and to what degree?
Um, I think I look at my connections and my priorities, um, and really weigh my investment or my time against my future. And so the folks that I choose to interact with, I expect that rhythm to continue. Um, the the entertainment that I choose to interact with, right? I I use it and expect it to continue as a method for breaking up some of the the stressors and interrupting some of the stressors that are in my life. And the the opportunities to invest time or finances, the return that I look for varies, but I tend to look at where the leadership is, whether it's myself or people I know or people I can research and look at their professional history or the history within their field of expertise or at least field of practice, and whether I can see and examine and reflect on a vision, mission statement, or goal. Those things determine, whether I choose to invest, and then the language that they use, that that entities use, whether it's an individual, um, or a proprietorship or an LLC or corporation, um, or an NFT project or a cryptocurrency token. I am taking indicators, weighing them against parameters, and then taking those parameters and looking at my goals and my plans for the future to say, does this investment and the potential return coincide and align with the future I want to have? It's just like playing with my young niece or nephew, right? I expect to be a part of their lives. So that means being in their lives now, right? Not just for the sake of camaraderie or rapport, but also that they might know me and recognize me and acknowledge me to be um, a space, an agent of support and encouragement and change as they grow and see the world differently than I do, that they can acknowledge and recognize the change because I've been living in this system much longer than they have. And so I have found a way to survive in it where they will see the system and say, this is not the system that should survive. And I want to be around for that to give them a map with a legend to to help them lead me in the direction that we should then take off to, knowing what I know, and then you know then then knowing what they see and what they can dream up. Yeah, I think my time and my time is always uh, intentional. I think don't feel like I'm anywhere by accident, and I'm always choosing to show up in a way that's authentic and serving serving me and my heart. Yeah. What about you? How you spending your time?
for me, this is like I do my best. Don't mean I'm flawless. And it highlights how my time appreciation, the value of it has changed so much because I have a lot of appreciation for people. Like I enjoy to see people do well, but I understand that that doesn't mean people are ready to do well, right? And there's some people who are, and I become so caught up in what I have access to that I don't push myself to have access to something else, right? I have friendships or relationships that at the time in the past served me well. And I realize they don't serve me because I can't serve them, right?
Mm.
I want to help grow people. I want to help grow opportunities. I want to help grow money. I want to help grow freedom and autonomy, right? And I realize the people, right, they may have received some encouragement. They may have received some level of skill building, but I'm no longer in that space of encouragement and skill building. I'm in the space of development and action. So my time now is spent on development and action, right? It's spent on creating things to share, giving opportunities to do. And that's where I give myself to. When it comes to the people around me, I've narrowed it down so much because it was difficult to know how do I create boundaries within love, right? If I love you as a person, what are the boundaries that I need to continue loving you if the love needs to be present or reciprocated or consistent, right? Because I can love you from a distance, I can love you from afar, right? But more so ever now, I have to love me first. And if the love I'm giving you is making it harder for me to love myself, then I have to create that space and create that distance, right? So even more now, it's me owning that. It's me owning that space and that distance. It's me owning the fact that I choose to be healthy and it matters to me greatly because I want to have a healthy life and a healthy environment and a healthy family. I focus on money and wealth and how to grow that. So I lean into those ways that will provide me those opportunities because I'm not with the great reset. I'm not with the
Mm.
focus of you will own nothing and be happy. Nah, I'm not with that. That's not me. I'm owning my identity, owning what I believe in, and I'm leaning into that. And with that means I'm not spending time with other people, right? If I can identify that what you value is different than what I value, it can be seen in your actions, it can be seen in your time. My time, I love doing what I love to do. And what I love to do is I love to create, right? I love spending time with people. But more than that, I want freedom. And I know that my ability to create is going to grant me that freedom. It's going to grant me the ability to say, I am the determining factor on how much money I make, not someone else. It's not me negotiating with someone because they defined it for me. It's me walking away because I can afford to walk away, right? It's not me sticking around to wait for the next opportunity to present itself. It's no, I've created something that has value in the market. It has value within people, right? And that's what I lean into. That's what I love to do. I love that. And I see that people that I thought loved this that too, it's not that they love that. What they loved was something else, some other element, some other aspect. And now I can't lean in on that. I can't give myself to that. Right. So I now create space and create distance. And it's tough because I love them, but I have to love to miss them, not love them in person, love them in presence. Right. It's like learning that there's a boundary that has been set and upholding that boundary because their expectation of me is it doesn't exist for myself. The expectation I have set for myself is different than what they have set for me. So I can't uphold and reciprocate what they have. And what I'm seeking from them, right? they're not able to give me. So this is where we grow apart. This is where the tree starts to branch off in different directions, right? It's one thing when the branches are near. It's a different thing when those branches spread out and go in different directions. And I think that's where the time for me is branching out in different directions, right? Learning and seeking something that's unfamiliar. People talk about, not switching up, not realizing they're switching up every day. They just got to look in the mirror, right? You're not who you used to be. As much as you may try hold on to every fiber on your head, every little bit of hair, that ain't the same hair you came in with, right?
I don't even put weight on the idea of not switching up because I step step into every moment trying to change. And the folks who don't recognize me, right, are not acknowledging the change. The folks who don't recognize me or see me as different or that I switched up didn't move with me. They didn't change also. They didn't change their perspective. They still seeing me as they knew me, um, instead of sticking around to watch me grow. If they watching me grow all the time, then they know who I am. And I'm waking up every day trying to change. So whatever they don't recognize, or whatever is making them uncomfortable about my switch, that's for them to reconcile within themselves. And it's like I feel like it's very much okay to, I was talking about this week, to mourn the loss of friendships, mourn the loss of the importance of relationships. It's like this bond used to be important to me. It is less important now, and that's okay. It was not my intention, or nor is it an enjoyable thing, but I accept what is true in this reality, and I will not try to move backwards or create an illusion about what's real and what's fake, and and the loss of the importance of a bond, a friendship, or relationship. It's like it's just not as cool as it used to be. Um, I don't care. It's not that I care less. There's just less time to invest because the return has diminished, right? Or the return hasn't necessarily diminished. My my budget or my portfolio is bigger, or my budget has changed. So the same I don't have the same leeway in the budget of my time to allocate in this direction. And the folks that I do, I expect them to be a part of my family and everybody that I rock with. Right? It's like one day, right, when I when I have a wedding ceremony, I'm not gonna invite people that's not gonna be around. Like, yeah, like whatever people feel like they they are owed for being a friend to come to this ceremony and celebration, that don't matter. You ain't about to be here for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So I'm cool. It's not worth it. It's not in the budget of my energetical bandwidth, of my mind space, of my heart space, of my of my of my future. Right? It's like if I got a time IRA and I'm looking at 60 years down the line, 35 years down the line, I'm not taking out nothing from what I've given to you. I don't want nothing back. I didn't already pay taxes on that, on what you got to give. And that's what I think that's what growing apart is like for me. It's like I didn't already put in the work to to make this thing successful, but where you going and where I'm going are not the same space. You may be going toward the sunlight, but I get up early and reach for the sun. So I'm going east and you get up late. So when the sun is in the west, you reaching for it. But because I'm going east, I've been reaching for the sun all day. I've been soaking it up. And that's the direction I'm going. But for the folks who waiting and catching it in the afternoon, go ahead. Have them last 3, 4 hours of sun. Whatever you get, that's for you. But that's not where I'm going. I'm up early. And that's just what it is. I think when it come down to it, it's like you gotta have the people around you go resonate. The people around you is go resemble you and you go resemble them. That's why I rock with my producer. I don't even get to talk to him all the time, but I know what he about. I know he making moves, and I know he focused, and he got he don't just got stuff on his plate. He got multiple plates, right? It's like I got this salad plate, I got this dinner plate, I got this dessert plate, but he got stuff that he's passionate about and he's working on and all the time. And so on top of what he's doing, I know that I'm fortunate just to be a part of what he's pursuing each day or each week. Like the fact that I get a contribution from him, I'm like I'm gonna try to be here, and I try to shift stuff around so I can be here, and I go hard, but I know that if somebody look at my life and my workload, it's gonna resemble his in some way. And I know that if somebody look at yours, it's gonna resemble ours in some way. And that folks is the type of people that's around, right, are getting the sunlight early. It's soaking it up. And that's not by accident, that's by alignment.
I think you brought up a good point. Mourning friendships, right? To mourn them. Attack on Titan. To mourn friendships when you realize those friendships have changed, have evolved into something else. Because it is such a key component that we don't often take into account. We don't really understand that sometimes, you know, what's understood don't need to be explained, right? And sometimes what you understand for yourself is just yours. That's it. It's just for you. And I think it's often overlooked because when you think about your self care, your wellness, your overall sense of well being, we oftentimes will just minimize that for others. We'll minimize it for more harm, to add on more harm, to put ourselves under more pressure when we don't have to. More recently, I've realized I'm not going to choose to struggle if I'm struggling for someone else's sake. Example, I'm going to tough it out. Why? Why am I toughing it out? What am I toughing it out for? If I'm doing it because that's become my habit, is this habit good? Is this a healthy habit? Or is this habit no longer serving me?
Hmm.
I got to really think about that. Now, I've realized for myself, toughing it out was me dealing with the guilt of I got to show up for XYZ person, right? Not showing up for me, not giving space for me. I'm just going to push through. I'm going to make it through the day. I'm going to do what's necessary, right? Now, I think it's necessary to communicate to those around me. Look, these are my boundaries and these are my limits that I'm not willing to compromise on, because it's not a matter of me saying I can, it's me saying I choose not to. I choose not to for my sustainability because I have multiple things going on. So me feeding these buckets may mean I'm not feeding myself. So what do I got to do? I need to back off. I need to walk away. And I think that most people forget that. They forget, or they don't realize, or they continue down this pathway of this minute self destruction just because the world around me says I need to. We've seen it with athletes recently where they're speaking up about their mental health and the need to step away, the need
Yeah.
to create the boundary, to create the space. People will judge them because it's them changing, making like the revolution, right? Oh, because I have a platform and because I've been in this platform for so long, I'm going to use my voice to counter the argument that they need to step away, that they need to. What's wrong with them? They got it made. They're living good. Under what perception? Under what value system? The
Hmm.
value system of materialistic wealth, of monetary possessions, over the perception of physical like things. That does not account for a person's mental health or their mental state. Think about how many faces you've seen evolved because they got chopped up and rearranged. If the greatest artist is God, then what did they do? Right? And those are the same people with the extravagant items and the extravagant things, right? They will then go and butcher themselves. They will mutilate themselves for what other than the mental perception of who they are in front of people, right? Whereas we have athletes, right, who are saying, you know what, I'm pushing myself. I shouldn't tough it out. I shouldn't continue and perpetuate this lifestyle that's not sustainable, that's probably eating away at me, that's probably going to take a level of joy away from me that if I'm not careful, I might not be able to get back or I might not be able to grow from. But yeah, that's the thing. We have become accustomed to things being a certain way for so long. Some of us have a hard time accepting that.
Hmm.
And I think it's important that, yeah, like, as much as we mourn our friendships, we turn that reflective lens on ourselves too, to know like where do those boundaries lie? Because sometimes it's not playing a sport, right? That is a relationship, right? It's your love of the game, but it's also the coaches, the teammates, the friends that you've developed, the family members who supported you along the way, the sacrifices that were laid down. There's all these different complexities that play a factor. And that doesn't just mean for sports, that can mean your job, that can mean your 9 to 5,
Right.
right? Are you saying what needs to be said to the people around you, or are you continuing to say, I'm going to be nice? Oh, I'm just trying to be nice. Is it serving you, or is this a habit that you have developed because other people have reinforced it and exploited it and used it to their advantage? Attack on Titan. Affluent. Do you have any final thoughts, final words for the people listening to episode 84 of the Lyrical Ones podcast?
Yeah. Feel what you need to feel, acknowledge and accept what you need to see, release what you need to release, and just let go of what you need to let go of so that you release when you need to release. And then let go of what you may be holding on to so that you can receive more of what's meant for you. Like it's not always easy to find what's meant for you. Sometimes you gotta seek it. Sometimes it'll come to you. But I think pursuing what's close to your heart, pursuing the things that matter to you and align with your purpose will put you on a conveyor belt um, of things that are meant for you, people that are meant for you. Yeah, and like and morning changes is just fine. Finding a time to mourn change allows you to accept it and then see the good in it. Just like with family members. Dang, it's trippy. Um, Rest in power to my uncle Big Luck. Um, yeah, first first podcast with him ascended. It's wild. Um, but we move forward and accepting what has changed allows me to celebrate all that was good and radiant within him and who he is, who he continues to be, and the reflection of those who loved him. So yeah, it's just like more than the change, accept the change, then move with the change. Be water.
Well, be water. As much as we can be anything, we are majority water. And, yeah, I mean, condolences for the loss. Um, to experience the love of someone to then have lost someone resonates all too well. And it's important that we take the necessary moments to reflect, to appreciate, to acknowledge the relationships that we have lost for a variety of reasons and mourn them. It's something that, yeah, it's like it almost goes without saying a lot of times that it will happen, but the form for understanding that, the place to create your own identity within it, to navigate it, it's not always touched upon, but it is necessary to do. So often as we do at this time, is we go.
one, 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 one.